In today's show, it's slightly different to our normal type of show, where it's titled What Do We Think Of? Where we both ask each other questions about things in the news, current affairs, and about life with no preparation, and we answer from the heart to see what we think of those things.
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, I'm Tony Fasulo, and I share the stage with my esteemed friend and colleague, Tayo Boya. Tayo, hello, my friend, once again. I hope you're keeping safe and well.
You're not going to ask me to say hello to the audience or anything, are you?
Perhaps.
What the hell, Tony? What you going to do?
Come on, you anticipated
Oh my
the
God, you
question.
are going to ask me. Oh,
I am.
Hello. I think hello, Robert Bell, too. The guy on in our chat
TNT Talkers.
TNT Talkers. Who
Yes.
supported me. So hello to you. I'm going to let him know that he's got a hello on one of our shows. Oh, they'll keep it up, chaps.
Yes, indeed. As some of Tayo's meager fan base is growing. He's almost getting to one hand's worth of people that like him. Let's make it cheer those people on. Yes, indeed.
Hooray for I think it's 3 now, isn't it? Look up, I've been able to count them on the fingers of one hand.
Indeed. It's just think it's taken what 4 years of shows to get 3 people.
My personality comes shining through, obviously.
Indeed. Anyway, on with today's show. Now, before we continue with the topic that we're going to discuss today, I want to remind our wonderful audience, well, Tayo's already done it, of our new Facebook group called TNT Talkers. And on that, it's open to the public. Anyone can join, and you can comment on our shows. You can take a swipe at either one of us if you feel the need, but you can comment on the topics we've discussed on our previous shows. And you can also make suggestions on there for any new subjects you think we should cover. So please join that group. It is entirely free, and Tayo and I are both on there, so we will respond to any comments. If, however, Facebook is not your thing, then you consume our content on another platform, then by all means still continue to post on those platforms. We do get back to each and every one of you, even if it's a little bit delayed. So please continue to do so. Right, on with today's topic. This is an interesting one. This is a very simple one. It's what do we think of ... And here, Tayo and I are going to, we're totally unprepared for this. We're going to ask each other questions really about what we think of certain things going on in society. And so this is unrehearsed, unprepared, and we're talking from the heart, off the cuff, or whatever terminology you want to use. So, Tayo, I don't know whether you want me to go first because I've got several things here.
I've only got 3. So
oh, okay, that's fine. Well, I'll
first.
start with mine then, and I've got a question for you. And it was actually one that I was interested in before, and it popped up in the news. And it was a chap who said, I was misidentified as a shoplifter by facial recognition technology. And he was a English black man. So, what are your thoughts on this technology now, where facial recognition is introduced? It's shared amongst the stores to identify potential suspects and nip it in the bud. However, we can get situations like this one where an innocent person was mistaken by the system, which led to him being embarrassed, searched, sort of harassed, and made an example of when he was totally innocent.
Well, I got several thoughts flooding my brain right now. One of which is when you reincarnate, guys, my suggestion is don't come back as a black guy.
Stop it.
Take it from me. It's a lot easier. Well, yes.
Oh dear.
By the time you reincarnate, maybe you should come back as a black guy because the way the West is going, I don't know. Anyway, yes. So there's that. Then there's facial recognition software. There's an error. There's a margin of error in any of our technologies in this day and age. It would be unwise for people to put 100% faith in whatever their screen or system is telling them. And I'm not sure that it should be. I don't know about when you say it was searched. I don't know how far that went. I think it can be stopped. I don't think anybody's got a right to.
He was harassed. I wouldn't say searched as such. I would thought he was harassed because people were thinking he was a known thief who's on the system when he was clearly misidentified. And that's the failing of this technology where, yes, it can be, useful for sure, because it's ensured that shops are aware of known thieves that do the rounds because they're captured and shared amongst each other. But when a misdiagnosis is occurring,
Misidentification.
my apologies. Yeah, then you have problems like this.
I often look at people in shops and think to myself, how did they let that person in? Because they're tattooed from head to toe. They're in what I describe as chav clothing, which is to say, what do you call these things that people wear to go jogging in? Jogging suits and that sort of thing, and trainer. And they just look like thieves on the lam from police who stopped into the shop for a quick snatch of something or the other before they continue to try to evade capture. So, frankly, if anyone, it just depends. I think if you're stopped and harassed by shoppers staff, maybe rather than search around, cast around, which is the modern way of doing things, is always to blame someone else. Maybe get a hold of a full-length mirror, take a look at yourself from top to bottom, and ask yourself, what do you actually look like? So, people want to be, yeah, no, you should treat me as an individual, but they put on the uniform of slackers and thieves and shoplifters. It's like you're asking
That
what I
seems that
think.
you're now implying that there's a uniform for shoplifters and thieves.
There is.
Surely that's being a bit disingenuous. Surely.
No. Maybe, but is it true? It's a more important thing. Every time you look at someone who's caught shoplifting, they have a certain look about them. It's true or false. I mean, that's my position. I look at the thing. It's just like, well, you look like a shoplifter. You will call shoplifting. Now, I see a lot of videos. Actually, to be honest, I don't see that many videos from the UK. So, as usual, even though I don't particularly like that country, my opinions are largely formed by watching American content. And I'm sorry to say that in America, they're black, they're badly dressed, they sport various forms of horrid tattoos and all sorts of things, and they look like a certain type. So if you look like that type, where did this take place, by the way? Was it in America?
This was in the UK.
Oh, right. Well, like I said, frankly, I don't watch that many videos and things, but I think there's a certain look. It's like when women get upset when men approach them, and they say, "Well, you're objectifying me." Yeah, but look at yourself in the mirror. You've got the uniform of a prostitute on, so people think you're a prostitute. What's the freaking problem? If I put on the uniform of a police officer, I can hardly be upset when someone runs up to me and says, "Officer, come and help." You can't be upset. But they want to have it both ways. They say, "Nah, I'm just dressing like myself." Well, yeah, well, obviously yourself is a prostitute, so there's no issue here. It's just jog on with it. And this poor chap who was harassed, yeah, sorry that he had the inconvenience and the embarrassment, but maybe I'm just suggesting because I don't see a picture of the fellow. I don't know what happened. Maybe take a look at how you are and how you dress and how you behave. And like that. I know that in a shop here in Northampton called Coleman's. I can say that because they've gone, they've disappeared. So
Okay.
I can say so. Called Coleman's that sold stationery. Every time I walked in, the clerk would leave his desk and come and stand next to me. And that happened 3 or 4 times. And then I finally like, what the heck is this guy doing? So when he came and stood next to me, I turned towards him, stared at him, and put my hands across my shoulder and just stared at him. And then he turned right in the face and he laughed off. Well, that's what you do. If you've got nothing to hide. You can challenge behavior like that and say, yeah, hold on. What's all this about? And if to me, let me explain something. If this had happened to me, I'd have been, what do you mean the software has recognized me? Okay, let's have a look. You sit down, you have a chat. Do you know the funny thing? You probably end up being friends with the staff.
Yes.
If you just take it, calmly and say, oh no, that's not, that's not me, and
Yeah.
that just take everything calmly. It's been a misidentification. They'll be ever so sorry, and you've made friends.
Yeah. I've
That's
just shared a photo with you of the
Oh, good.
gentleman called Sean Thompson,
Mm-hmm.
and he works for a youth advocacy group called Street Fathers in the UK. And he walked past a white van near London Bridge in
Oh, okay, come on.
February.
He does look like, come on.
No, come on.
No, I'm
Within
not
you,
joking. Why would I joke about something serious like this? I mean, look, he's got this thing covering his hair. He's bearded. He looks like he's any second now going to put on a flipping, get that hoodie up and running. Yeah, that's not dressing. Maybe, he needs that for street cred. Because if he's a youth advocacy walla, then there's a certain look that he has to offer them. So they think that he knows what he's talking about, rather than he goes in dressed like maybe I'd go and they go, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And they'd be right. But
he's an advocacy group called
yeah,
Street Fathers.
yeah. So I'm
Okay.
saying, I'm saying that maybe for the reason of being, presentable to the youth that he's trying to reach, he has to be dressed like that. But that definitely is not a good way to go into a shop, I think.
Well,
I'm
he was
serious.
stopped. Yeah, he was approached by police and told he was wanted, and he was fingerprinted, held for
Oh,
20 minutes. Yeah,
okay, that's going
and
quite
only
far.
let go. He was only let go when he handed over a copy of his passport. Now, obviously, the article doesn't say was he carrying his passport. Did he go get his? I mean, maybe he had his passport on him. I don't know, but it was definitely a mistaken identity once they saw the passport.
Well, no, that's you don't want that to happen. So I
No.
think in that situation, well, I hope he sues and I hope he wins. It's got to cost people money.
If they get it
Unfortunately,
wrong. Yeah.
yeah, because it's no, it's the software company that I'm hoping will have to pay a large sum of money, not the police. Your facial recognition software is obviously a load of baloney, for Tony's sake.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I was going to say. It's obviously a little baloney, and yeah, it's not good. It's not good enough. I mean, there are films like this. I
They
can't
did say
remember.
the people that wrote the software did say, admittedly, and said, look, 1 in 33,000 cases is a mistaken identity. So that's
Well,
part of their
this is England,
tolerance.
so it's at least it was just inconvenience at the end of the day. It was embarrassing and inconvenient, but fingerprinted, and then it's going to take a while to get those destroyed because you're going to have to get a court order or something. Now, compare that to if it had been in America where they shoot first, ask questions later. I mean, that's a whole
No,
new.
indeed. That you're absolutely spot on there. Spot on. I agree with you. It is an inconvenience for him, but luckily, you're right. It is in the UK. So
Mm-hmm.
he was mistaken identified incorrectly,
Mm-hmm.
but at least it was no major damage other than some hassle for him.
Yeah.
Had it been in America where they're a little more, let's say, trigger happy,
Mm-hmm.
then that could cause a really big issue. So yeah, I'm agreeing with you
Absolutely.
in that case.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, not good enough. And obviously, I think the entire film's based on this thing about, the wrong identity and, leading to all sorts of problems.
A lot of
Yeah.
places are using this technology, unfortunately. Nightclubs, bars, even banks and financial institutions, because they're the ones that are vulnerable to
Mm,
raiding. And hence they have this information up front where you have vans on corners that literally scan all the people in
I'll
the
tell you a problem that I foresee with this. there's a problem for the citizen, but it could be, putting on my conspiracy tinfoil hat, it could be the government is quite happy with this. Because if this happens often enough, a lot of people are going to have to start carrying ID around. You just hear so many stories that you just end up thinking, you know what, I don't want any hassle, any bother. So just in case I am stopped for some funny reason, I'll just have my passport on me or my driver's license on me or whatever it is. And then a lot of people just start carrying ID around. And then we'll just get used to police stopping us and let me see your ID. We'll become desensitized and it will just become part and parcel of a normal way of living. This command and control structure will be in place. Your boiling frog philosophy.
Yeah. I mean, there's strangely enough, we were having a similar discussion around our dinner table today, where
We've
in
had dinner
Europe
already.
Yeah, we had dinner
I'm
early.
just fooling you.
My son's gone to work, so we had to have a bit
right.
early. The yeah, we were discussing about ID because we were talking about earlier on in the year. My wife and I had gone to Rome on a small weekend trip, and we went to see the Colosseum.
Mhm.
Now, to go into the see the Colosseum, you need ID, and a lot of the British people didn't have ID, and you pay to go in up front, and then you have to queue to show your ID. So everyone pays, and then they're in the queue.
Oh no!
I know, and you're in the queue, and it's like, what's the queue for? Oh, this is to show the ID. Why didn't you tell us before we
Why
came
don't
in
you
the
do
door?
the other way? Why don't you do the other way around?
Everyone in Europe carries ID, and we're like, well, we don't. So, but what they tell you, which is interesting, is don't bring your ID with you. Just
Yep.
take a photograph of it on your phone. It's enough. It's enough for the police. It's enough for getting in anywhere. And they're not going to take your phone away. They just want to see the photo on the phone. That's all they need. They don't actually need the original, which is interesting. So a lot of Europeans now don't carry their ID with them. They take a photo of it and carry it on their phone.
I'm going to put it into my gallery. I'll just create a special folder.
Yeah,
just got,
exactly.
So
That's hardly a hardship.
That's all that's in the folder. Very easy to locate. Bada boom, bada
Exactly.
bing, you're done.
Exactly. And that's the thing. So it makes it easier. So your
For the police and the
official
government to
document,
stop you, it makes it a lot easier for them.
It does, but it also means that they don't get your original document.
So the free society, we should be able to go where we want without all this until there's a suspicion that we've done something wrong. At which point is when the police and the government have a right to say, "Where's your ID?" So on suspicion of walking on the street, even was identified as a shoplifter. Was he wanted? Why was he stopped? Was So I don't know what that story is.
Yeah, that's a strange.
And trying to get into the Colosseum, I don't understand why you need to see my ID.
Because there's been examples of people trying to sabotage that relic. We spoke about it on a previous show where people going into museums and damaging artifacts that are irreplaceable.
Again, you take your ID when you catch me trying to sabotage the relic. That's when I've done something wrong. Otherwise, we're going to end up
people
like
with a history, so they don't actually want them to come in. Unfortunately, you've done it once elsewhere. Sorry,
that is a fault of the court system, not of and should not then become everybody else's problem. If they've done it more than once, this 3 strikes and I'm out thing should have been keeping them incarcerated for 25 to 30 years. Then they're not going to be anybody's problem.
Indeed, so but we just touched on it here. Look at the American situation with someone being identified incorrectly. Do you want to shoot first and target the person?
You argue my point. You argue my point.
I'm saying you're preventing.
No. You're because preventing. If they had facial recognition in America and they misidentified someone, and he was just how many people get shot trying to reach for their passport to prove that they're not looking for, and they get shot. Now, if they don't have facial recognition and all that, then and there's no crime being committed, there's no reason for anybody to pull their guns. Is what I'm saying. No one's going to end up dead.
Yeah, but
the facial recognition thing is a trigger point. Is an additional trigger point.
But it's only when it's identifying people have previously caused an issue.
Misidentifying, and
not all the time. The majority of the time, it's got it right.
But some of the time, and the effect is what I've said, that the Colosseum is asking everybody to produce ID, even though the percentage of people they're looking for could be less than 1%.
It's going to be
Less than
way
a,
less than 1%. It's a
less than a
fraction.
quarter. Exactly.
But
So
how
how
else
come
do you think they police their own? They have to take things into their own hand, protect their asset. So
Well,
you're going to ask for ID.
You know that money that you're handing over to get into the blooming place. Maybe you should pay for some blooming guards or something. That's all. What the heck, man?
They had guards anyway.
Then there you go. So your guard should be alert, and when somebody pulls out a pot of paint or something, then you grab the person. I
don't know. Go through a scanner as it was.
The Colosseum is quite large, man, as I remember it. It's not exactly. So what, they're taking sledgehammers? Well, how exactly are they damaging?
You can't get in now without going through an airport security scanner.
So what are they damaging anyway?
I agree in terms of the way that they've done that, but you still have to provide ID.
No. Well, you're very. I've always said you're very Marxist in your thinking, and I'm very libertarian. So catch me when I've done something wrong. Then you can ask me for my ID. Blah blah blah.
So for each time, so if you've done something wrong at a previous museum, say you were the person that threw the paint, should you be given in a free society the ability to go to all other museums because I only did it once?
Yeah, if you only did it once, you're okay. It's not a problem. You do it a second time, it'd be your final warning.
Then you've damaged something that's irreplaceable a second time.
Well, yeah, but unfortunately, this is the price of freedom. There's such a thing called the price of freedom.
Agreed, but there are some limits to the price of freedom. We can't go around walking with swords in the streets. We've had this discussion before.
Yeah, you can't go around walking with swords in the streets unsheathed. I don't even know. Why can't you walk around with swords in the streets? Yes, you can, as a matter of fact.
It's a weapon.
But if you buy the blooming thing, you walk into a bus stop, I mean, you're allowed to walk the damn thing. If you're unsheathed and start attacking people, then
I think that you're not allowed to walk around the street.
So there are shops in for anybody who knows Northampton, UK, not the one in Massachusetts, as I was horrified to find there is one. Northampton, UK, on Gold Street, I believe. I always get it wrong. It's not Giles Street, Gold Street. There is a shop that sells this curved sword, that katana, the Japanese curved sword. So I can imagine walking in there and buying it. Are they going to say, no, you've bought it, go home, we'll post it to you? Sorry?
Possibly, yeah. They may do.
I'm going to have to find out. So
or they have to securely fasten it so you can take it home. So it's not exposed. Can't walk around
that's what I said. So you can walk around with an exposed sword.
Yeah, exposed.
But if you're carrying a sword because you're transporting from point A to point B,
that's fine. Same with it's like the same with if you've bought a knife set from the shop, got to be sealed.
Those will be properly packaged, though.
Yeah, it's got to be sealed and everything. Yeah.
No, mind you can buy loose knives, can't you?
They have to be properly sealed. You can't just take it home out your
bag.
No,
what it means, you can't walk with them.
No. you can't walk around with anything beyond the 6-inch blade, so you certainly can't have a sword. So I don't know where you're getting that from.
Sort of waving it around and
getting hard like
you know. But, well, I don't know. You probably could, but people would be. I mean, I'm thinking about Nigeria now. If you did that in Nigeria, where we've got a lot more personal freedom than in the UK, people would just give you a wide berth. On the other hand, in Nigeria, if you try something funny, see, this is instant justice. There's no long discussion. You've been lynched and set on fire. And then that's that. So it is amazing how, taking robust masculine action can sort out a lot of these problems. All this talk to the feminine...
You know what's funny? If the guy was only delivering it for somebody else.
Way up. Was it me or you? Your volume has gone through the roof there.
Has it?
Could be.
Is that me? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, very loudly.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe it's me. I don't know.
I don't know. It sounds okay at the moment.
Okay. All right. Well, carry on then.
Okay. Yeah. Am I still too loud for you? Because obviously I don't want this to be the case for our audience as well.
I'm lowering.
You can hear me though, yeah?
Oh yeah. So I've lowered it for myself. So I don't know. Okay. Just suddenly jumped, but I've got this weird thing. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we've done that one.
Yes, I think we've done that.
We'll never. The nice thing about the TNT talk show is that you and I will never agree on certain things anyway, so we can't resolve them.
Okay. What's one for you? You've got for me. We've already done half an hour of our show. It's me over one topic.
Ridiculous.
Okay.
How do you, Tony, know when you are right? How do you know when you're right rather than when you believe you're right? I'll tell you before you get started, let me explain. I used to think I was right about many things. One of them was this idea that I had defined intelligence in such a way that it would discriminate between a human and an AI. Now, this was a few years ago before AI became a thing. I was watching a sci-fi movie and I just thought, yeah, I can define AI. And I defined it as the ability of a person, of an entity, it doesn't matter, the ability to recognize a pattern. And then with the recent explosion in AI, what did they do? They recognize patterns. So that kind of blew my my definition out of the water, because now these machines are showing what I defined as intelligence. Now, before that point, when I had to admit that I was wrong, I thought I was right. And my question then is, when arguing on the internet to so many people over so many different issues, how do I know I'm right? How does the other person know that he or she is right? So that's what I wanted to ask you. You and I argue all the time. How do you know when you're right?
I never know I'm right.
You don't act like it.
No, I don't know I'm right. There's no
You act
absolute
like you
for
know
me.
you're right.
No, I'm sort of right, if that makes sense. It's a strange one.
No.
I don't believe anybody is 100% right. There are going to be some examples of sure, but there's not that many. There's still a lot of partial right and almost right and nearly right, but not 100% right. Because in any discussion, any not falling out, any dialogue about a particular subject, it's never black and white. There are always variations, and both people can be right to an extent, except one person's less right than the other one. But it's not 100% and a zero. It's never like that. I know some scientists will argue and some mathematical people will argue, but this is all based on the fact that some of our maths, what's the maths made up of? What's the particles that we see? Are we sure they're true and real? So
This is
you
possibly
don't know.
why this is possibly why you sit on the fence so often.
Possibly, yeah, because I'm not 100% right on anything. And I don't think anybody has the hubris to think otherwise, because you're going to find that there are certain things that will not tear someone's argument down, but certainly find cracks in it, even if some scientists are 99% right. They're not 100% right, because there could be something that changes, evidence that appears that counters what they say. So I'm not right at all. Not in the sense of the word. I'll back my point of view because I believe that's leaning towards being right. But deep down, it's not necessarily. And I've always got that element of doubt, because so should everyone else. No one should have this hubris attitude to think that, yeah, I'm right no matter what. You're wrong, I'm right.
Not so much right no matter what, but definitely right. I mean, I'm right most of the time until I'm wrong. But the difference is when I'm shown to be wrong, I find it easy, which I think other people don't.
You find it easy to what? To admit that you're wrong.
Yeah, the other day I shocked you when I said, but if you're right, you're right. And you were like, how did I said, if you're right, you're right. But the problem is that you don't see that reaction very often from me, Tony, because most of the time you're wrong and I'm right. So that's why you don't see it. I mean, you've been right once in 4 years. Duh. You're right, you're right. When you're right more often, you'll see my reaction. Well, I've just admitted now to being wrong. And I've had to come up with a new definition, which I'm happy to share. But this time I am still it's unfinished. And it's this: intelligence is the ability to recognize a novel pattern. So that pattern cannot have been recognized by others. You cannot have been exposed to part of that pattern before. The first person who ever figured out that there is a pattern to winter, spring, summer, and autumn had to come up with that on their own. Just observation through observation.
Okay.
That to me is intelligence. So when we're training AI models, we're not given, they can't be intelligent the way I'm talking about, because they are being shown patterns to recognize, if you see what I mean. They've been given data and pattern, they've been trained. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I know we brought up AI, but aren't AI finding patterns that we haven't produced, because they know the framework of what patterns are, and then when they're confronted with a new pattern that we ourselves maybe haven't seen, they can spot it's a pattern. Hence why there's been breakthroughs recently using AI in medicine that would have taken normal research, well, tens of years, if not longer, decades, whereas AI has managed to find those patterns so much quicker in a matter of days even. So,
yes, it's a pattern recognition. It's pattern recognition software. I really wish you'd never actually called it AI. Pattern recognition software would have been
well, it mimics intelligence.
Would have
It
been
mimics
great.
what we
Weird.
deem as intelligence. What, can you not hear me now?
No, something just flashed up on the screen. It's like
okay.
the new Zoom thing.
Okay.
Yeah, well, no, we're still recording. I thought we stopped recording. Sorry, no, it's just for ladies and gentlemen, we record on Zoom, and it seems to have changed very recently, and I'm still getting used to it.
Yeah, it's had a major update, and things have changed considerably on it.
Yeah, I don't know about mimicking intelligence. That's the whole point, that it's making me go back to basics again and say, well, what is intelligence? Because if you've got a large sieve and you're sifting through large quantities of whatever, the larger your sieve, the more useful material you can get out of it and quicker. That doesn't necessarily equate to someone intelligently, that is a human, doing it by hand, which would take a long time, but in their case, making decisions that are really intelligent. It's not mechanical, if you see what I mean.
I do.
There's something in there that I haven't quite put my finger on.
Well, if let's give an example. We as humans, as we're born, we're subjected to different stimuli, and we pick them up through our senses. Our brain processes those things and tries to make patterns out of it in our head. And because we're learning, meaning collecting all this stuff, we're guided by the things we see, and we are pattern recognition entities, because we form patterns and we see things occurring based on the data we see. So, but we count ourselves as intelligent, but all we've done over the course of our life, over many years, is collect information and make patterns out of it. So we've done the same. It's just that AI has got an advantage over us in that it can do it far, far quicker. It doesn't forget, which unfortunately we humans do. So it can access all this data pretty much at the same time. So it has an advantage over us. Now, whether it can decipher patterns by itself, because have we learned to decipher patterns, or was that an intelligence which then allowed us to decipher the patterns? Because we could do the same thing with animals. We could show them patterns since birth, but that doesn't mean that they will work out what we work out. So we're a step ahead in that respect. because we can do more with those patterns and interpret them in a manner which benefits us as a species.
Mm.
Can
Yeah,
AI do the same?
I don't know. It's all very complicated, Tony. It's all getting more and more complicated every single day. Anyway, I think you've done my question.
Okay. Have I answered it though?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you're sitting on the fence.
Okay. Right. I've got one
Yep.
which that actually came in just 2 days ago, and it's one of my favorite topics. And
No,
but
no.
it came no,
Aliens.
no, not aliens this
Oh,
time.
wow. Thank goodness.
Okay. There's a professor
Hmm.
who argues that there's evidence to prove that life is a computer simulation.
Oh, yeah. I've read of. Did you send me the link or something? Or why do I
This
know
is
of
a
it?
recent one. His name is Melvin Vopson. He's an associated professor of physics at the
Hmm.
University of Portsmouth in the UK.
Hmm.
And he says our lives contain several clues into this theory, and he's looking to prove it in an experiment. And he's recently published a book about the topic. And he says there's limits. If there was no limits to certain things, then why are these limits there? If this was a truly non-virtual environment, so it was just like we believed it was, just the normal life,
Hmm.
there would not be limits that are identical wherever they happen to be. And one of them he says about light. Light is fixed. Why would light speed be
Hmm.
fixed? Why?
That's a very bad example because we're not sure light is fixed. We're not
Well,
certain of it. I'm really surprised that he chose that because that's controversial. And I mean, look, there's something called there is there is something called conventional. Well, it's not called. I'm calling it conventional science. This is the science approved by the science academies around the world, by the Royal Society here in the UK. This is your approved standard establishment science. Now, that science says,
they
yeah,
prove it and disprove it, and then they
no, no,
agree
no, no,
that,
no. That's the whole fun. Funnily enough, that is exactly what it is not.
well, that's not
And
how science
and there's
works,
a
but okay.
exactly,
They do
exactly.
disprove it. That's the whole
No,
point.
no, 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 no.
No,
That's the
that the
problem.
whole point of when a new discovery is made is
Mm.
they then try and disprove it, not to prove it. They try and
I
disprove
agree.
it.
You're talking about the science. I won't call it legacy science, but you're talking about real science, proper science, experimental
Yeah,
science,
yeah, yeah.
hypothesis, disprove, and all that. That's what science ought to be. It's
Right.
not what science has
Become.
become,
Right.
and that's the problem. That there's now sort of establishment science, and if you go outside establishment science, you will not be published. You can't get the word out. So everybody has got to toe the party line so they can get peer reviewed. And Sabine, I'll never be able to pronounce it.
Hofsteimer or something.
Well, you
Sabine
see,
Hofsteimer.
Sabine, I don't know, guys. If
Hofsteimer.
you go
Yeah.
onto YouTube and type Sabine physics,
Yeah. She's
it,
very
it,
good.
she'll come up. And she's just done, say about a month ago, she just published a video where she was actually complaining about the state of physics
Yep.
today. And one of the things I know we're going to talk about it later, but I'm still learning how to talk about it, the electric universe. One of the complaints of the electric universe people is that they're given an entirely different perspective to these questions. And they go further, they're building actual things in labs that seem to hold up their end of the bargain. I mean, they've got plasma fields, like stable plasma fields.
Yeah, but that's not disputed in mainline. That's one of the elements that actually isn't disputed, strangely enough. I've
Yeah,
been doing some research on this,
yeah, I
but
saw
the
the video you
others,
sent me. By the way,
yeah,
that video was very bad because that particular fellow is not a good person to follow. and
Okay.
I know a lot of him about him. He
Mm.
argued. I'm talking about somebody called Professor Dave on YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, he's not a professor. He calls himself a professor. He doesn't have he doesn't have degrees or whatever in the fields he argues about, and then he's arguing with experts. Now he went up against somebody called Dr. James Turr, who is a molecular scientist who builds nano machines. So you couldn't get better than that. Who publishes, I think it's published like 400 papers, peer-reviewed papers. Who's got patents coming out of his ears. I mean, this guy knows what he's talking about. And then this Professor Dave goes and argues with him, makes poor old James Turr lose his temper, and end up screaming and shouting. And then at the end of it, Professor James is quoting people. So what does James Turr does? He issues a challenge. He says, I'll take everything down. I'll take down all my videos on YouTube. Answer these 10 questions. And he sends it to the everyone that Professor Dave quoted. Yeah, well, no surprise. This is what, 8, 9, 10 months later? Not a single answer. So anyway, the electric universe people have got alternative explanations. Now, some of them, to me, I'm going to be careful again, sound like a load of baloney. Right? I am not an EU advocate, but in their arguments, there are really serious questions that they ask. And one of them is about the speed of light. And there is strong evidence that the speed of light, A, isn't constant, and B, it's slowing down. And what do they do? Well, how did they get around it? A fantastic quote from the American Center of, I don't know if that's what it's called, the American Center of Standards, something to do with the people who set standards. Naval, it for some funny reason, it belongs to the Naval Department of Naval Affairs, whatever they call it in America. You know, their Navy. Yeah. So that's where their standards, their thing. The length of the lengths and time.
Like in Europe, it's in Paris where they've got it here.
Right.
In Europe, it's in Paris.
Oh, that's the SI units thing.
Yeah,
it?
Yeah. It's
so
all
do you know what they did? When in the 1972 or 73, when they were finding that they had these problems with light, they simply defined a meter in terms of light, of the speed of light. So how do we ever prove now? If you've defined the meter in terms of the speed of light, if light changes, your meter changes. You will never flipping notice.
How are they discovered that light is slowing down?
Yeah, I can't explain it all right. I'm not ready to.
Well, I know how they measure. I know how they measure the speed of light.
Well, I'm not prepared to get into that now because I'm not prepared for that discussion. But the point is, there are strong arguments. It's not a done deal. So I've always argued with you that this is not a simulation. This is a virtual reality, and I've tried to make you understand that to me there's a difference. A simulation means that we are just automatons. We have no free will of our own. We're just being simulated. A virtual reality is that we're all players living in a virtual world.
Yeah, but if that's the case, if we are all players living in a virtual world, that makes no difference of whether the world is virtual or not. What difference does it make?
Because if it's a simulated reality, you have just been simulated. What you just said now is just part of a simulation. You're programmed to say that. It's not you thinking anything. You just open your mouth and it comes out. I'm just talking because I'm programmed to talk this way. It's not me thinking anything. But if it's a virtual reality, it's your thoughts and my thoughts.
I think that's where the confusion lies. It's not computer simulation, virtual reality. It's not that we are a simulation, that we are simulated. I'm not sure about that. Well, we could be. We don't know. We could be acting out what the parameters of this program are allowing us to act out. That's why we'd never know.
I think it's a virtual reality, and I think things are there when we actually interact with them. This issue about our stars there, the stars 6 billion light years away. Why would it be really there? It's, there's no need for it to be really there. It just has to look as if it's there. Now, if you can travel towards it, it will start being there more and more, and by the time you get there, it will be there. And that way you save, whatever. That's just and I think there was someone some experiment in the CERN people. They're beginning to ask themselves questions: are they creating stuff just because they're observing it? That that is it really there, or is it we observe, so it's been made for us to see, sort of thing. Yeah, so it's all become quite philosophical. Certain parts of physics, especially cosmology, that's bad news. But there we are. No, I'd like to read what's the guy's name and his book called?
His name
Can we put it into
is
the blurb?
yeah, we can. Yeah. His name's Vopson.
The what?
Melvin Vopson. Melvin Vopson.
Okay.
And yeah, we can put this in the blurb.
Melvin Vopson. Don't worry, I'll find it. Melvin Vopson.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, we'll put it in the blurb, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah, if we find out more about it,
Yeah.
it'll be in our TNT Talkers group thing. It's
That's
an
right.
associate professor of physics at the University of Portsmouth with a
Yeah.
wide-ranging scientific expertise
Yeah.
in experimental, applied, and theoretical physics. Ooh. Oh, okay.
Okay. So what's your answer to that then? Do you think he'll be successful? Is he going to prove that we are in a simulated or virtual reality environment? And what's
No.
not in the okay, question. If this is a virtual reality, is it just our minds or our consciousness that isn't living in it? It's living outside of this reality.
Well, let's not forget that Ty believes in reincarnation, and I've spoken to someone who I hope to get onto the show who claims. I'll use the word claims. She claims to remember her past lives, more than one at this point, and she claims to remember what she calls the intromission, which is the part between lives. And she says that we are stripped bare naked, not physically, but mentally and emotionally, and that is very peaceful and very calm, and there isn't much to do. It's resting. And some people, in response to her statement, opine that we come back because it's more fun here. Now, this is our playground, which is what I've always kind of thought that this was. I think I've said on air several times, I think this is a playground. I think we come here to play. And being on the other side is not very playful. It's very stable, very calm. It's nothing harms you, but at the same time, nothing's exciting for that very reason. If you're never in danger, and if everything is always all right and everything's always fine, it's easy. It's difficult to get excited about anything. So
are we saying therefore that this virtual reality is not a computer simulation, but it is a computer stimulation, because our life outside is not very stimulating. So we created this virtual reality world in order for us to play and be stimulated. Whereas outside, if it's safe, it's just nothing happens, we may not actually enjoy it.
Possibly. I think we may have overdone it a bit by allowing ourselves to be tied to stakes and burnt alive. Maybe that was just ignorance. Maybe back in the day we didn't know just how serious pain could be. I don't know. So I don't want to be tied to a stake and burnt alive under any circumstances. I don't want to be buried alive. I don't. There are all sorts of things that I'd rather not experience. Thank you very much, no matter how exciting they are. But when you talk to some people especially denizens of the internet, who seem to be a degenerate and somewhat lunatic lot, some of them say the most amazing things, and it's not hard to imagine them saying volunteering, with gusto for such experiences. And it could be that if you get that experience, supposing we are actually sitting around now, please, ladies and gentlemen, play this game with me. I'm not saying this is what actually happens. I'm giving you a suppose, okay? What if we're all actually sitting around a campfire in the great hereafter, and we're shooting our mouths off, and we're boasting about what we went through and what we've been. And the more we boast, the more kudos we get. So we do want to come back and put ourselves through horrors, because that lets us in the after, hereafter, we get bragging rights. And with those bragging rights, we get goodness knows what, because I can't imagine what else we're going to get up there. But whatever it is, so, those of us who are very timid never get ourselves involved in that sort of thing. But those who aren't,
I think you're reflecting your current view here in this earthly world and projecting it outside. But you're saying that this lady, who hopefully will get onto our show, will tell us differently, that when you're outside, what's the word she used?
Intromission.
Intromission. So when you're in the intromission stage, you're stripped of all these things. You don't need them. You don't need the emotions. You don't need the thoughts.
Yeah, but I don't want to. I necessarily believe what she's saying, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I believe other things. This lady. Can I name her? I don't see why I shouldn't.
No,
because we've spoken about her before.
No.
Anyway,
don't name it, because we want to see if we can get her on the show.
She actually remembered things and brought a family back together again. And that's mind-blowing. We spoke about it during our
we did
earlier. We did a 2-part show on reincarnation.
Gosh, that was years ago. Do you know that?
Yeah,
it was in our first year, nearly 4 years ago.
And I think it was pretty good, actually.
It was. They were both very good. Yes.
So yeah,
very early doors. We should revisit that topic at some point.
Anyway. Well, hopefully with her.
Yes, with her, indeed.
With her present.
Okay.
Have you
conclusion?
Okay. Is
conclusion? Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, I believe that there's something dodgy going on here in the world. It's not what it seems to be. It can't possibly be what it seems to be. Therefore, yeah, it's not real. It's the Buddhists have been saying this, not just the Buddhists, by the way, the Hindus. They've been saying this for thousands of years. They call it Maya, Maya, and it's the world of illusion. And that's not, they've been saying that for thousands of years. That this is the world of illusion, and that things are not what they appear to be.
Interesting. Okay. I'm ready for my final question, seeing as we're not far.
Very simple, but we're going to do this, but we were going to do it with guests, but we can't actually find people who are willing to come on and talk about maybe things that they find quite sensitive, which is a surprise to me. I'm ready to bear all,
Okay.
The only reason I don't do it so physically is to spare your sensibilities, ladies and gentlemen. Believe me, you'd rather not see. Okay, so the question is, if you could go back and meet your 20-year-old self, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? If you found a time machine and you wanted to go back and fix things and say, yeah, okay, if I talk to my 20-year-old self, this is what I'm going to say. But to make it interesting, you can only go back for, say, 60 seconds or so. So you've got to, you can think about all you want before you get there. But when you're actually there, you don't have a long time to go yada, yada, yada.
Wouldn't my 20-year-old self dismiss me as an apparition or a dream and not take it seriously?
Well, then you could really pinch his arm really, really hard and make him yelp.
Well, as a 20-year-old, I had hair. I know it's hard to imagine. I know.
I saw a picture of you. You were quite good looking.
What's that saying? I'm not
backhanded compliments. Inc. Backhanded compliments are us.
In my youth, yes, indeed. What would I have said to my younger self?
Massage your hair follicles.
Jovially, don't knock at number 57. Leave her alone.
Oh,
no. What would you say? Well, in my particular example, I was actually would you believe this, a very reasonable footballer. I was playing at quite a high level, and I even got, paid to play. It was not bad, but had I taken it further and seriously, I could have been who knows where, earning silly amounts of money, in the Premier League, etc. Who knows? But there was a crossroads, and that crossroads was drinking and women. And I chose that instead of going to the football training. So my advice to my younger me
Mm,
would be the drinking and the women is not worth it, Tone.
mm.
It's not worth it. Carry
You can
on.
catch it later when you're rich.
Well, indeed,
Then it
but
comes easily at that, yeah.
at the time, I didn't see that. I'd rather go out with my friends, go drinking, chasing skirt, as it was back then, rather than knuckle down,
Mm,
not to go drinking and do extra training and go along to the training sessions, which I would miss because of my boy
licentious
girls.
lifestyle.
Yes,
Lifestyle.
indeed. So if that, for me personally, that's the advice I
Mm,
would give myself and say, look, knuckle down, do that first while you're still young and able, because you're not young and able for long.
mm,
And
mm.
so, treat that with respect, use the talents that you seem to have discovered in yourself, which I had, and use them fully, which I didn't. I didn't nurture them. I didn't put them to the best use, and I
I
let
see
them
this all the time
fade.
in my students. Many of my students, I try to tell them what you've just said. That it's incredible how quickly the opportunities are lost because there's just all it is an opportunity. It's not an outcome.
No,
It's an opportunity. Now, if you grab it, excellent, you get a good outcome. If you don't grab it, well, you don't get such an excellent
no.
outcome. But it's good enough. I mean, I got another student who's taught me this expression. It's good enough. I think I've spoken about him.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, you
This is a
mentioned it
very
in the
funny.
previous show.
He does his maths and he doesn't quite get it right. He goes, well, it's close enough. It's very fun. I find it quite funny.
There was
I
a
like my
example
students.
of that, and it
Mm,
wasn't good enough, where a lander
mm,
partly built by the Americans and also partly built by the Europeans.
that's right.
And
Mars
one,
lander.
yeah, and one part of it was designed by the Europeans, but the measurements were American, and the
No,
measurements,
the British used, the Europeans used SI units and meters and things, but the Americans insisted on their foolish miles and nonsense, feet and miles, and the discrepancy caused the ladder to go screaming into the Martian
yeah,
terrain.
and crash.
And
This is
then,
not a joke, folks. This actually happened, and
yep.
so yeah, close enough is not good enough, unfortunately. It's got
Sometimes
to
it's
be.
not close enough,
It's
isn't,
not.
isn't, yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's all relative, but for things like that, no, you needed
No.
to have it the accuracy, and that's what was missing, unfortunately.
Mm.
Okay, so that's what I would say to my younger self. I hope I've answered that
Yeah, you did very well.
question.
Yeah.
Okay, we got one more. We got a few minutes. I want to see if you can do one very, very quickly. Okay. A This is one where actually very, very simple. Reported in the main news. China launches military drills around Taiwan
Mm.
with warships, live fire, and jets
Mhm.
to divide and demoralize Taiwan and send a signal to the US. Now, obviously, they crossed the Meridian line, which is the
Mhm.
line that they have between China
Yeah.
and Taiwan,
Mhm.
but they didn't actually go onto the island, obviously.
No,
But
no.
Taiwan did scramble jets in anticipation, which to keep them on their toes. And
Mm.
this is now becoming a daily intimidation, as Taiwan would say. They're provoking Taiwan. And it's all to do with the new military leader in Taiwan, who originally was voted in on a policy of being strong. But funny enough, when he did his speech, he actually sort of put out an olive branch because he didn't want to be at odds with mainland China. But obviously the Chinese didn't like him winning, and so they did these drills. What's your view on this? I mean, uh, you've made your views clear in the past, but
Mm.
what do you think of this further saber rattling and between the two?
what happened was that the guy who was elected during his speech to the nation, I think at his swearing-in ceremony, used the term Republic of Taiwan for the first time. Previously, no Taiwanese president had ever said anything like that. They were maintaining this illusion, this pretense that China and Taiwan are one nation with two different systems, which is what America signed up to and supposedly believes in. And that obviously incensed the mainland China, because that is very close to saying we are independent.
Yeah.
And that is what sparked this, as you put it, saber rattling. Now, what I think is this, that the American hegemon runs around the planet creating chaos by using useful idiots who are interested and possibly minting money with their... Something's flashing.
My light's doing it again. Do you remember we did this last time?
I know,
seems to, but it only happens when I'm on the show with you.
We need to get
How
the Poltergeist on air. This is make millions if we could do it, you know.
It only comes on. How strange.
We're going to get... I'm actually in contact with someone who I hope to get on air. She's volunteering to come on air, and she's a clairvoyant. So maybe all this is just in preparation for the TNT talk show going absolutely nuclear when we prove in the afterlife. If Tony will hang around long enough, because I think if Tony sees a poltergeist and his spirit apparition, he might be out of there. I would be gone, and I'll be like, hello, is anybody? Anyway, so yes, useful idiots, because this is exactly what the Americans are doing with Ukraine. And look at what's happening. It's 500,000-600,000 Ukrainians dead, not Americans. And it's going to be God knows how many million or hundreds of thousands of Taiwanese dead.
Yeah,
it ain't going to be Americans.
But hold on, but the Americans haven't actually... They didn't instigate the incursion. You can't.
Yeah, they did, because they're sending them money. They're sending them $8 billion.
Oh, what, to continue?
Yeah. So the saber rattling. They're building. The Americans are saber rattling. They're building bases now on Philippines, because the Straits of Malacca are a choke point. So they're threatening China with all that. At the same time, they're aiding and abetting Taiwan. They're sending their government officials. I mean, elected officials are going to Taiwan. This is all ramping up.
Do you know why? You know why it's all to do with money, don't you? It's to do with the company TMC, which is the largest chip
to do
producer.
It's also got to do with the military industrial complex, because all this, the $8 billion. Where do you think it went to? It went to the MIC, and the MIC takes money and then it pays it to the congressmen and women in America, and they make a load of money. So it's all the money.
Yeah, it is horrible, isn't it?
But it's and the same thing's happening in Georgia. Look, George, are you aware of the Georgian situation?
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Tbilisi.
It's hilarious.
Anyway, we can't. I'm mindful of the time. Let's keep it on point here. We can talk about that.
No, but it's hilarious. What have the Georgians done? They have copied a bill, right? A piece of legislation. They've copied it from the Americans. And the Americans are complaining about it. It's the same. It's the same blooming bill, but it's less. It is gentler. It doesn't put people in prison. It just fines you. The American version puts you in prison. It's called the Foreign Agents Act. I thought
there was part of it because Georgia wanted. I mean, we digress from this answer, but Georgia want to be in the EU, or were showing aspirations to be.
Yeah, and Russia said, "Go ahead." And who cares about the EU? What you can't be is can't be in NATO.
NATO, yeah. Now, but that wasn't the plan.
The Taiwanese, the what do you call them? The Chinese, the mainland. I wouldn't call them the mainland. The mainland doesn't want war with the island. Because after all, it sees it as its own nation, its own province, if you like.
Yeah.
And just like they were able to settle things calmly eventually with the Hong Kong Well,
that's not ideal, but okay,
but it's sort of, it was calm and things have calmed down. They're saying, one nation, two systems. All we need to do is talk about it. Let's get this thing sorted out. We are not going to allow you to.
The problem is one nation, two stitches stifling the other system. That's the problem.
What we don't want is we don't want Taiwan to be an unsinkable aircraft carrier for the Americans.
Indeed,
it's too close, and this is it. And I think if we just don't allow yourself to be a useful idiot, I mean, like we in Britain have done, I don't know. Why must the Americans be like? It's not. I don't even blame the Americans. I blame the people who let themselves be used.
Indeed. Okay. I mean, we could talk at length on these topics. They actually were longer than we expected, but they were good fun anyway. But unfortunately, we have reached the end of the show for another week.